Hi there, this is Luise Heinzel. Welcome to part 3 of my little tutorial series on how to make your own postage stamp album out of a vintage book. Today I would like to talk about these signatures that I finished in between of the last video and this video, and I also would like to show you how I will bring those signatures into my album. So first of all, let me tell you something about the stitching and the pockets on those signatures. In the end of the last video, I tried that out, and as you perhaps saw, I used a straight stitch, and it was not such a beautiful result because I had problems to sew the pocket in one step on the front and the back side. I wanted to have only one stitching line, or how do you call that? So I tried to put this thing through my sewing machine and tried to sew on the front and the back side at the same time. But with a straight stitching, that was not possible for me because I'm not a sewing expert. Then I came to the idea that I want to use this zigzag stitch, and I also use this magic glue because it has this little, this tiny opening there on the end. I could make really small drops of glue to make sure that when I have this glue here, that I don't ruin my sewing machine. It's a little bit, not so nice that the glue is shown here, but it was not possible for me to sew this without gluing. First, I thought I can only fix those pockets, so I can clamp those pockets with paper clips and then run them through my sewing machine, but that was not possible. Everything moved around. So I decided to use these tiny dots of glue. I think this zigzag stitch is not only more beautiful, but it's also easier to sew with a zigzag stitch than with a straight stitching, because you always will grab the pocket paper, so you will have no problems when you are not in this line that you have planned in the beginning. Another problem for me, it was a problem, is that, of course, when you do it like this, you have one beautiful side, and on the back side it looks not so beautiful. That's, of course, a normal thing when you work with your sewing machine, that one side is more beautiful than the other because one is the front and one is the back side, of course. You could, of course, put two beautiful pages on top of each other like this and glue them together, but then the pages, of course, would be really thick. And I don't like that. I don't like thick pages in my journals. So I decided to solve this problem in a little bit other ways. So I will show you that in a second. I just took the first signature, made sure that it is in the right direction, and later on it will be in my journal like this, so that I have the beautiful page, the front of this sewing on the front. And then I flipped it like it will be in the journal later. So now I have this page here, also one of the beautiful pages on this side. And for the next signature, I flipped it the other way around, so that I have on the left side the beautiful page and on the right side the not so beautiful page. So I arranged all the signatures like this, that I changed the order, that I have one with the front side on the other side and with the back side on the other side. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Oh my gosh, this English language kills my brain. Sorry, I think you can see what I mean. But of course, it's also only some kind of personal preference and a personal problem that I have with this stuff. Of course, you could also just arrange those signatures in the way you would normally do it, and just put one signature after each other, and that would be no problem as well. Yeah, so this is my finished result of this new order of the signatures. I just pressed here on this side a little bit so that the folds are really nice, because some of the signatures I folded the other way around, so that I have to make sure that the fold is really nice and clear. And another thing that you have to remember in this step is that you have all the signatures in the right direction. So I just check this here to make sure that my pockets have their opening on the top, and that I don't flip one signature around by accident. The next thing is that I want to put them here into my journal to look how this looks. And I also want to answer a question in this point that is often asked. So I hope that I can bring this point out in English. So when I have this here on my desk, I can see that there is enough space in between of the signatures. So many people ask, especially beginners, how much space has to be in between of the pages or in between of the signatures. And that's a thing that's not so easy to answer, because it belongs to the thickness of the materials that you want to put inside, of course. But I make it like this. When I close the book and press the pages together, then I have here approximately half of the thickness than I have on the other side of the book. So I mean on the end of the book there where the spine is. So here is double thickness than on the other side. And for me, that's a little trick that I think nearly 100% works with every journal, not only with those ephemera holders. When I make this trick and I press the book, then I can see that this fits. And in the past, it shows that, yeah, that this trick can help to find out how many signatures and how thick the book can be. The original pages were in the book like this, so that means the spine was not glued to the back side of the signatures. So I show you that here on another book, but it's the same technique this book was made. As you can see here in the end of this thing here, there's a little gap in between of the signatures and the spine from the inside. That means when you put your book to the table, you can open it and it lays flat. So this little hole here helps that the book can lay to the table really flat. And I want, of course, that my postage stamp album later can lay flat on my table as well, and that I can open it really nice. So I will try to put my signatures into this journal as the original signatures were in this photo album. So I also will not glue this here to the spine later. So before I can bring my signatures into this journal, I have to make a template so that I know where my signatures have to be in the end. And with those old books, sometimes there's a little problem with this measuring thing. Because, yeah, let me try to explain that. When you measure the spine in the inside, as you can see here, it can be a different size than when you measure it like this. So the problem is the construction of these old books. So let me show you this with a book that is not destroyed. So this is the same problem here. When you look at these tiny edges here, you can see that the spine is a little bit wider where the cover is ending. So when you see this line, you can see that the spine on the left and the right side makes this little, yeah, this little, how is that called? This little corner to the outside. And if you would measure the spine from the inside, then of course you have a measurement that is much too wide. So you have to measure in between of the front cover and the back cover. there where the cardboard is ending, and you don't you can't include this little tiny corners that are on the end of this book. So yeah, it's a little bit hard for me to explain, and it's also hard to do it in reality. So I always am struggling a little bit with the measurements of that, and I would like to encourage you to just make a template and try that out. So you can see here and here is this little gap in between of the front and the back cover and the spine. Just measure this and then measure the other thing, so when the book is closed, and take a measurement in between of this, make your template, put it into the book, and then look if this can work. So I think there's no really rule or something like that how to figure that out. So perhaps I don't know this rule. So if you have any trick how this can be done, in less time or more easily, then please write a comment down below how you do this. But for me, it's always, some kind of little mystical thing, because, excuse me, please, those measurements are really difficult to find out. But if you take your time, I think you will get a template that fits for your book and that, fits for your signatures, and you can do this project just by being a little bit patient. I like to take this grid paper for my template because I have this squares on it, and I have a really easy job to cut this in the right size by orientating to these little squares. And I also can arrange my signatures really easily just by counting these little things here. And now I'm just realizing that when I take every line and every half of these squares, that can be a good amount of signatures. I just have to put 2 signatures more to my book, and then this will work, so that I can use this grid of the paper and make my holes for this template where the thread later will go through without any measuring. So I like to do things without measuring. If you know me, you know that. So I will show you in a second how I did that. But first of all, I want to cover the inside of the book with this beautiful fabric. So I decided to take this one here because I got it in a Happy Mail. It was a really, really sweet friend from Germany who sent me this. And this is a special fabric. So she wrote me some kind of secret letter in that she wrote where this fabric comes from and that she wants me to use it for something special. And now I'm doing this here because when you saw the other videos, you know that this original vintage book also came in a Happy Mail, and it's also a really special thing. So in this project, I'm combining different special things. So also the stamps that I will put into this journal later are really important and special for me because my grandfather collected most of those stamps in the past, and now I can use them for my junk journal projects, so that 3 really special things come together in one project here on my desk. I just teared this fabric. Of course, you can also cut this, but by tearing it, it makes this really awesome and junky fibers. So I really like that. Of course, you can cut them a little bit later, but I like this really, little bit grungy look when this peeks out of the book later a little bit. I just take the size of the inside cover plus a little bit of space, so additional space, additional fabric, so that it can peek out a little bit. Of course, you can cut or tear it in the size that you like. Then I fold it into half just to make sure that I have the middle of this fabric. And when I fold it out, you can see I have this little line here, but I didn't use any pen or something like that, so that I don't get any ugly marks to my fabric and that I can just see where the middle is. In the next step, I take my template and some gel medium to glue the template to my fabric. Perhaps that sounds a little bit strange because most of the people use the template to make some holes somewhere, but I like to do it like this. You will see in a second why. So yeah, let me just glue this here. I take this gel medium because when this is dry, it's still really flexible. It dries not such hard, but yeah, it's a really sticky glue. It's durable and sturdy, but not this, yeah, kind of unflexible thing. And when I don't want to glue the backside of these signatures to the spine, then I have to have something that it's a little bit flexible. If this is too sturdy, it's not so good. And if it's too, how do you say that, too flimsy, it's also not so good. So yeah, as you can see, I just glued this exactly to the middle of this piece of fabric. And when you take a fabric like this, that has this pattern that you can feel, then make sure that you press this really well and that you also dry this really well when you have glued it. So that's really important to have this really, yeah, in the place where you want it. In the next step, I take one of my signatures to make sure that I know where they have to come. And now this grid paper again makes sense because I can see with my eye how high the signature has to be here. So I have one of those squares on the top and one of the bottom. Sorry, you can't see that here in the camera frame, but now I think you can see it, that it's exactly in the middle. And then I decide where I want to make my 3 holes because I want to sew this in with this 3-hole pamphlet stitch. Hopefully that's the right word. So I need a total of 3 holes in each signature. And I'm orientating here on these lines of my template so that I, again, don't have to measure anything except the middle of this thing. So of course, the middle hole has to be in the middle of this signature, but yeah, you can also count these little squares on the paper to find the middle, or you can just take a ruler and measure where the middle is. Now, when I have this 3 points there, I exactly know where I have to make my holes. By the way, if you want to make holes into your template or into your fabric or your spine piece, then just take an old book that you can lay down below. Some people take telephone books because they are really thick, and you can take this tool here and poke your holes without destroying your desk. So yeah, take something to protect your desk, that you don't have all those holes in your desk, please. And then I just poke all the holes. So with only those 3 dots that I made before, I can see where to poke because I know the line, the horizontal line where to poke. And I do it on the line, and then in the middle of the square, on the line, in the middle of the square, and so on, so that I don't have to measure anything in this point. So for me, that's really comfortable and really easy because, yeah, you can eyeball the middle of such a square. As you can see, this is really regular and really easy to do. So, of course, this piece of paper that I used for this template thing will be not sturdy enough for the spine. If I would sew my signatures into this piece, that cannot work. So when I have my holes, I take this piece of, what is this? This is some kind of scrapbooking paper, so in this craft paper look, and I just glue it now on top of my template. That seems a little bit strange, but I want to cover up the template. That's the one point that I don't see this grid paper later. And the other thing is that I want to make this thing a little bit more sturdy, but flexible in the same time. So you have to search for something if you want to do this that is flexible. So the scrapbooking paper would be really well for this. And something that's not too thick and not too sturdy. Otherwise, it can happen that when the book is finished, when you open it, that this piece breaks. And of course, that's nothing that we want to have. So, of course, this thing will disappear later in the book, but because of this little space in between of this and the inner spine, you can look into this hole, and of course you could see the grid paper if you won't cover it. So that's another reason why I'm doing this. And of course, drying is one of the most important things here. So make sure that everything is really dry. I use my heat gun for this, so this is just a regular embossing heat gun. Make sure that you move it around when you heat this here, so when you dry this, so that you don't burn the fabric. But I think that's clear. You always have to be a little bit careful with this heat tools and paper and fabric, but I think you know that. So then this whole thing looks like this. And now I take my signatures, so don't be confused, please. In this camera frame, it looks really weird. So I put all my signatures on top of each other. So these are all the signatures that will go into the book later. And I lined them up really exactly. Then I take my ruler, place it to the spine, and then I just make a line on the end of the signatures so that every signature gets a little dot with this pen there where the hole has to be later. So I can make sure that all the holes are in the exact same place and in the right place. Then I take my tool here again and poke the holes. Sometimes you can't see them so clearly because of the stitching, but yeah, you have to be a little bit patient here as well to find those holes. But the more exactly you do this step, the more exactly you will get in the end with your result of this book. So now I take my thread and put it to my needle. Then I go into the middle hole of the signature and of course to the middle hole of this fabric spine thing so that I can come out there. And I leave a little bit of the thread in the inside of the signature, and then I go from the outside to the first top hole of this thing, and again back again into the signature through this hole as well. And in this point, of course, you can bring it a little bit in place, but it has not to be such straight. You can fix that later. Then, when I have this, I take the thread and go with the needle through the bottom hole and into the first bottom hole in the spine. Sorry, it's a little bit difficult for me to explain that, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. And when I go back inside, I use the middle hole again, so that I can come back to the start of this thread. And here it's important that one thread is on the left side of this thread that goes down there and one on the right side. So you have to make a knot now. And of course, that can only work when one thread is on the left and one on the right side of this middle thing. So when you make this knot now, you can see everything will be fixed in the middle. And with this knot, you can also, decide how strong this has to be, and you can bring everything in place. So in the end, it looks like this, and you can see and check if you can flip the signature like it has to be. So this is nearly perfect, I would say. I was really happy. From the outside, it looks like this. And when everything is sewn in, this whole thing looks like this. So now I have all my signatures in place, and I have to say I was really happy when I had done this step, because yeah, it's always a little bit tricky to find the holes and to make this in a really straight and exact way. For the next step, I'm just taking 2 paper clips to clamp this fabric here, so that I have an easier job to handle this. So it's only yeah, that it's not flipping around. And to make this back of the spine a little bit more beautiful and also again a little bit sturdier, I take this piece of fabric. As you can see, it's the same fabric that I used before, to cover this up. So that has 2 reasons. The one is, as I said, that it looks more beautiful. This fabric will peek out on the top and the bottom, so that this will be a little highlight as well. And I can also make the spine a little bit more sturdy, and I can bring those threads here, sorry, what you can see here, you can't see it, but you can hear my coffee machine. I think it's going to be a running gag or something like that, that every time when I make a YouTube video or make a voiceover, that this shitty machine, it makes this noise. I don't know. Sorry. So I want to bring the threads in between of this fabric and this scrapbook paper to make it be one with each other, so that it becomes one piece. This way the thread also stays in place. It can't move around anymore. So when you use this book later every day, of course you flip the pages, and this thread has always some work to do, and this way it will stay in place forever. So when I put this into my book, it looks like this. As you can see, these little things here come out. Of course, you can cut them a little bit. If you think they are too long, then you can cut them here. But I think this looks really nice when this is peeking out on the top and the bottom of the spine. Now I have to glue the fabric to my inner book cover, of course. For this step, I first place this whole signature thing into the middle. I make sure that I lined it up really exactly. I also close the book, as you can see here, so that I can make sure that, nothing will be in the way when I glue this. And then I take my gel medium as well. I found out that for gluing fabric, this is the best thing that I can get here in my area. I think in the English-speaking areas, especially in America, you have this fabric glue, this Fabri-Tex, or how is this called, but I can't get such a glue here in my area, so I use gel medium. Of course, you can use the glue that you figured out for gluing fabric that works for you the best. And of course, I put only glue to the cover and not to the spine. So to clear that up, underneath the spine of these signatures, of course, there's no glue. And in this step, hopefully it makes sense what I said in the beginning, because this little line that's in between of the spine and the cover, this little slot there, now looks really regular. In the beginning of the video, I told you, so I recommended to cut this really exactly, and hopefully when you see this now, that makes sense. That this slot in between of the cover and the spine is really nice, really straight, really exact, so that you can close the book very easily, and that it's that it has a nice feeling when you open and close it, and also of course that it looks beautiful when this slot is exactly. The same thing on the other side. I put my gel medium here as well, and in this step I have to be really careful that I don't move the signatures when I put the glue on. So I press really hard to this bunch of signatures so that it stays in place and that it don't move around, because now I can't change anything. When this is dry, it is dry and it is there forever. I can't remove it without destroying the book. So please, if you want to make this by your own, and perhaps if you are a beginner, make sure that you have everything in place. Otherwise, you have a problem, a really big problem in the end. So for making this really flat, of course, you can take a bone folder or your fingers and make sure that this slot is really, like it has to be. So go there through this slot with a bone folder or your finger or a ruler or something like that, so that the fabric is really nice in this slot and that everything is glued together really well. You can also do this several times, so yeah, make sure that it stays there. Sometimes you make a movement with this bone folder and the fabric comes up again, so just go over it a few times and then this will be nice. And also the fabric on the inside covers, you have to flatten them, of course. I have this patterned fabric and the pattern is a little bit, you can feel it, so it comes out of this fabric, and so I had to go into this little slots there with my finger a few times, but it worked, as you can see. And now this thing looks like this. The signatures are really nice and it opens really flat. And I'm really happy about that. So yeah, perhaps you are a little bit happy with me as well. And as you can see, when it lays on my table, we have here this little space now. And as I said, this is the reason why the book can be opened really flat. And for such a postage stamp album, I think it's really a good thing, because you use it every day and you want to take out and put in your postage stamps really easily. So in the next step, I tried to sort my postage stamps by color. And that was a really hard job, because there are so much different colors. You can't believe that. So I'm just starting here with my order. You can see this in a little speed up way. And in my next video, I will show you the finished result. So you will see what happened with all those little bunches of postage stamps and how I arranged them in my album. And I also will show you something that I additionally did with the cover, because when I had all the stamps in the journal, I thought, okay, the cover can get a little bit, some kind of a finishing touch, and that's something special that I never did before. So perhaps you are interested in that. So there will be a last and fourth part of this series. I hope you will join me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.